Okay, we are a couple of minutes after 11, so I think we are ready to kick off. Yes, I am sporting my Label Studio swag. We are starting to roll out some exclusive swag. I don't know if you can see the little opossum on the back, but we're starting to roll out some exclusive swag to the community. I'll be talking a little bit more about that. We've got something to announce today, which is our Champions program, and a couple of other things, but I am joined by the CEO of Unbiased ML, Sukesh Tedla, and we have a very interesting discussion coming up on ethical data sets, blockchain. It's going to be interesting if anybody's interested in blockchain, crypto, or just ethically sourcing their data, as well as anything really ML ops. This should be an interesting conversation, so can't wait to hear from him. But first, please allow me to plug the Label Studio community, because I am Michael Ludden and I do run our community here at Hardex, our open source community focused on Label Studio. First thing I would ask is please join our Label Studio community Slack if you haven't already. We are taking questions in the webinars channel. If you have questions for Sukesh or myself during this live stream, please submit them over there and we will answer them live. Also, we have our list of upcoming webinars, and we've got some more we're going to add to the beginning of next year. Very shortly, we're working with some partners on some really exciting ones that we're going to announce soon. So you can check that page. The next one we have coming up is with ActiveLoop, who some of you may be familiar with. That's going to be an exciting webinar. We'll have more to share shortly, but we have an RSVP link on Eventbrite, so you can at least register to get updates for that now. And then before the end of the year, we're going to overview some new features that we have as part of Label Studio as well. Video annotation, which is coming up. You can read more about that on our public roadmap, which is on our GitHub, as well as custom front ends. But this page is a great resource also to look at past webinars. You can watch previous ones that we've had on YouTube, or you can just go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Either way, the channel that you're on now, if you subscribe to that. Also, by the way, if you're live streaming this or just watching this after the fact, leave a like, please, and subscribe and share and give us a comment if you'd like as well. We appreciate it. It does help us grow and the channel grow. All right, so this is what I wanted to talk about a little bit before we get into the meat of today's topic. We have been scrambling, actually, for the past couple of weeks to put this together. Both Michael, the CEO, and I are very excited to announce Label Studio Champions. This is obviously the very first iteration. It's going to be growing up as we grow up, but this is available as of this moment, just there. We haven't even announced it anywhere else yet, at labelstud.io/community/champions. This is a program that allows you to earn points for completing activities. You can read a little bit about some of the activities on the left of the screen. You know, things as simple as subscribing to our newsletter or joining our Slack community can earn you points towards some fun prizes. You can read a little bit about the rewards on the right here. We've got a few different ones seated now, and we'll obviously be adding these. We're also hopefully going to be adding a mechanism by which you can request rewards and request activities in addition to just completing the ones that we have on there. We do want this to be collaborative. Of course, it's all tied together by a leaderboard. Thank you to our volunteers for allowing us to seed this with them. We just gave them 2 points because they're all in our Slack community, so everyone's on equal footing. The way this will work is basically you complete something right now, just to kind of get this thing launched. You will DM me, direct message me on Slack what you did. Obviously, if you're direct messaging me on Slack, you automatically get 2 points for joining Slack. It's just a fun way to earn points towards some exclusive swag and rewards, and should be getting more interesting as we go along. So if you're at all interested in that, check out the URL here. It isn't linked to yet, but we're going to make it part of NAV shortly, so you can kind of get an early access look at it if you'd like during this webinar. So just wanted to share the link for Unbiased ML, Sukesh's company. This is it, unbiased.ml. Very, very simple. And with that said, Sukesh, I'm happy to kick it to you. That's all I've got. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for the opportunity to come and talk about what we do and why we do it as well. And first of all, a huge shout out to the Label Studio team and also the community, and you guys are doing an awesome job in this space. With the tool set that you're building, I think most of the AI and machine learning researchers, developers are getting benefited because of that. Really, thanks for that. That said, let's take over and go through the presentation quickly. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Let me see here. Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone, for joining in today. And yeah, let's get started. So Unbiased. Unbiased is a data marketplace and services platform using blockchain technology to enable ethical AI development. So before going further about Unbiased, just quickly, a quick introduction about myself. My name is Sukesh Tedla. I'm the CEO and founder of Unbiased. I'm also the chairman for Swedish Blockchain Association, and I'm also involved in a bunch of other crypto and blockchain projects today. I'm currently based out of Sweden, and we are headquartered in Sweden as well. And our team is kind of decentralized. We are located in different parts of the world today. So before talking about Unbiased and the discussion about ethical AI, I thought it would be nice to have a quick, short presentation about what is blockchain and what's the purpose of using blockchain to build ethical AI. For whoever who doesn't know about blockchain technology, I think this will be a quick introduction. So whenever I talk about blockchain technology in general, I usually try to present this picture because this kind of relates to the way the socioeconomic societies that we have today work in reality. And the whole essence of blockchain and the whole purpose and the vision and the mission of blockchain kind of is addressed by this picture. Because when you look at this picture, we have different systems and processes in place today, which aren't beneficial to majority of the population, which are most of the time focused on benefiting the top tier people or like the top 1% or of something of that sort. And whenever we have some economic issues or crashes or whatever it might be, it's always the common people, the majority of the population take the burden of that issues. So the idea of blockchain came into existence because of these issues. So back in 2008, when the financial crisis happened, there was a release of a white paper called Bitcoin Blockchain Network, and which was authored by a pseudonym named Satoshi Nakamoto. So that's when kind of like the whole decentralization movement started, in my opinion, and the whole movement of open source technology started from there on. So for I think majority of the people today know about Bitcoin and the blockchain. They might have heard about Bitcoin and blockchain network today, right? So what is blockchain? So blockchain is a distributed and decentralized network of different nodes and infrastructure connected together. So the common thing among all these nodes and infrastructure is the shared data, right? So whatever one node consists of, all the other node consists of the same transactions or the same information. So in that way, all these nodes in the network come to a consensus. So in that way, if you change a particular entry in one node or one node in the network, all the other nodes start complaining because that might not be valid. So that way you are ensuring the transparency and the trust and auditability of the blockchain. So quickly about a quick differentiation between the current systems and how a blockchain-based system looks like. So when you are interacting between two organizations, whether it might be anything related to an AI algorithm or a data set, or whether you are interacting financial transactions or whatever it might be. So today you are trying to go through a centralized trusted authority, right? So if it's related to data sets, so you are going through some sort of marketplace as a trusted entity. Or if you're purchasing something on e-commerce like Amazon or eBay or whatever it might be, you're still trusting Amazon to facilitate this process between two organizations or two individuals. So when it comes to a blockchain-based network, the way it works is peer-to-peer, right? So it's decentralized. So which means that if I wanted to send one Bitcoin to you, I can send it directly without any intermediaries in between. So you are getting financial freedom, but at the same time, it's not only financial freedom, it's also if you apply the same technology and the same solutions to different category or different topic like data set, data marketplace. So you still, in that scenarios as well, you have that freedom and full control over the data and those transactions as well, because you're making peer-to-peer connections. So in this setup, blockchains basically enable trustworthy environments. So how does a blockchain look? So you have different blocks and they are connected in a chain format. So it basically means blockchain, right? So the first block is always called the Genesis block, where you have different data that is stored related to transactions. And I think many of you who are in the AI and the machine learning space are aware of the encryption and the hashing concepts. So whenever you pass the data through an algorithm, you get a unique hash. So this unique hash is used to map one block with another block, as you see on the screen. So in that way, whenever if someone is trying to cheat the system and someone is trying to fraud the network, these hashes are used to ensure the immutability of the data and also the security of the data and the blockchain itself. So in that way, you are ensuring the trust aspect of the data on blockchain. And then comes the smart contracts, where you can basically code different business logics, or you can trigger different activities that needs to happen when a particular actions takes place. So for instance, if I using a smart contract, we can facilitate a exchange of data sets between two organizations, or exchange of an algorithm between two organizations in a trustworthy manner. So, and there are many blockchains out there. So you have Bitcoin, you have Ethereum, you have many other blockchains out there. So a blockchain is categorized into different areas based on whether it's public blockchain or a private blockchain or a permission or a permissionless. So the key differentiation is that in a public blockchain, anyone can read and write the data to. And in a permission blockchain, only few actors can read and write to that blockchain. So in our particular instance, we are using a public blockchain because we want to be completely transparent and facilitate those peer-to-peer interactions. So that's briefly about blockchain. So if you have any questions, do write, and you can also learn more about blockchain on YouTube and many other sources as well. But if you have anything specific, you can write to me at any time in the chat. So let's go ahead with the next parts of the presentation, right? So why did we start Unbiased, and how does the blockchain aspect link with Unbiased? So just a brief history before talking about what kind of problems we are addressing at Unbiased. So when I initially started with Unbiased, the idea which was completely different at that time, the original idea we had was to fight fake news and misinformation, right? So when we had that idea, our original intention was to use some sort of AI model to detect and classify different news articles and different news into whether they are fake or maybe not fake or looks like fake. So into different categories, right? So at that time, one of the fundamental question we had was, why do people trust us when we provide these kind of suggestions? Why should people trust us? So when we had that question, we started looking into, okay, can we make the whole process that we are using to build these models transparent? And if so, how can we make this process transparent? Because there isn't any technology or any auditing or the quality assurance software out there in the market, which gives that level of transparency. So around the same time, I came into the blockchain space, and I had this basic understanding of transparency and trust and how blockchains help with that. And yeah, I thought like I discussed with the team and basically proposed like, okay, how can what if we bring the transparency and trust aspects of blockchain into building an AI model? How would those two interact, and how would that work in reality? So we started going through that rabbit hole, and then we kind of pivoted the whole idea that we initially had, and we started working on the current vision of Unbiased, which is fighting the building tool set that is needed to develop ethical AI algorithms. So today we are mainly addressing three problems with Unbiased. So one is access to quality and trustworthy data sets, and then ethical issues like data privacy, fairness, and bias. And the third one is the issues related to data provenance and potential regulations. So let's go one by one here. So first one, access to quality and trustworthy data sets. So most of the data sets that that many of the organizations have today are basically logged in their cloud environments or S3 buckets or whatever it might be. Most of the time they are logged in because they are perceived as an intellectual property and a business secret, right? So and this is a huge cost for the companies today, because the increasing size of the data is a cost for the companies, because they're just sitting there in the database without having any purpose once a model is trained upon them. So our idea was, and these data sets are really good, and they could be used in different industries maybe. And also sometimes there could be data sets which are not shared because of the privacy or ethical concerns. And because of that, there are a lot of limitations for the innovation as well. So our idea was like, how can we make this process trustworthy, and how can we facilitate these interactions in a trustworthy manner? So that's one of the problems that we are trying to address. I'm going to present you in the next slides how we actually do that. And then also second issue is about the ethical issues like data privacy, fairness, and bias. So when we talk about fairness and bias, so we can take the obvious examples from the previous years, like the issue with the Amazon's recruitment algorithm, for instance, or screening the CVs, where they were biased against women in their algorithms, and they had to take it down because of that. And also the ImageNet example, which is like the fundamental and the basis for most of the computer vision algorithms today. A research paper published during last year, and I think the before year as well, or during 2020, basically highlights the need, basically highlights the bias in the ImageNet dataset itself. When they try to use ImageNet dataset in a different scenarios, they actually identified a lot of bias, and which kind of can creep up into different algorithms that we use in computer vision today. And also there are many examples where face recognition algorithms doesn't properly recognize people of color, people of Asian origin, and yeah, because it's obvious, right? Because the data set itself is kind of limited to a certain demographics. So you don't know, but at the end of the day, these services like face recognition services and many other AI algorithms are being sold to different applications, not only in screening or like in some image recognition models, but also like in many different scenarios. So how do we know, and how do we ensure that these are actually fair to different demographics, and they're not used in a harmful way that affects the fundamental rights of the people? And the third point is the data provenance and potential regulations. So the origins of the data is kind of essential to understand, because when we talk about data provenance, the issues related to GDPR also comes into play, right? Because whenever we talk about data, there is also a lot of concerns among corporations and organizations that, okay, can I share this data with someone else, or can we use this data for this purpose or not? And if we use this data, how can we ensure and how can we prove that we used it in a proper way, and so forth. And also there are regulations that are being drafted specifically focused on the AI and the data sharing practices, at least right now in the European Union, but there are similar regulations that are being discussed in the States and also in China as well. So if you haven't already seen this documentary in Netflix, you should go and check it out, which is called Coded Bias, which mainly highlights the impact of bias in different situations and the impact of bias in AI in different situations. So the timing and need for audit is like, why is it the right time to address this? So there are mainly two regulations that are being worked upon right now in the European Union, as I talked about earlier. So one is the EU AI Act, which mainly focuses on the issues related to transparency and trust, and also the impact of AI in different applications. So they basically classified the impact and the risk analysis of AI into like 4 layers: high risk AI, or medium risk AI, and so forth. So based on the risk level, you need to follow different guidelines and get certifications to actually use those models in production. And also there is Data Governance Act, which is basically almost in the final stages at the moment. So which basically lays the foundation for exchanging data between different organizations. And when you're exchanging data between different organizations or cross borders, you want to ensure that the whole process is transparent as well. So these are the 2 regulations that we are trying to address as well as part of our solutions. So yeah, finally talking about the solutions, right? So today what we are building at Unbiased is mainly targeted towards developers, researchers, or AI and ML practitioners or engineers. So we have 3 things at Unbiased. So the first part is the services side, where we provide the data annotation and the data collection services through different types of different methods, like crowdsourcing, managed workforce, and so forth. And then also just to highlight, we actually use Label Studio frontend for this, and really thanks to the Label Studio team and the community for their contributions to that tool. It's really an awesome tool that we use as well. And also under services, we have the bias and fairness evaluation toolsets, which are integrated as part of the services. And also we have AI audits, which basically ensure that each and every step of the AI pipelines and the AI lifecycle is documented on blockchain. And also we have the marketplace, where you can exchange the data between different organizations. So all of these services, audits, and marketplace, if you look at the fundamental and the underlying aspect is the blockchain. So each and everything, starting from the services to the marketplace, every event that takes place on the platform is documented on and auditable on blockchain. So it's completely peer-to-peer, decentralized, and we can't change after the fact once an information is recorded. So that with that level of transparency and auditability, we believe that we can contribute towards the ethical AI development and also support these potential regulations as well. So how does it work? So let's take an example here. So we have a data collection flow here, right? So an enterprise or a researcher, whoever it might be, they come to the platform, they create a request. Okay, I need this data set of a specific images of birds. Let's take a simple example. So they come to the platform, they create a request, and since the request is created on the platform, every action is being recorded on the blockchain. Each and every interaction that's happening, starting from the project creation to actually getting that data set to the customer using a global workforce, everything is being recorded on the blockchain. So at the end of the day, when the customer or the developer is getting a data set, they have a complete audit history of what happened with this data set, so that they can use this audit certificate to show it to the governments or the regulations or whoever it might be, or even to their customers as well. Okay, here is the process that we followed, and here is the data set that we used to train this AI model. So a simple example of the certificate looks like this, and you can explore once you have this certificate, you can explore and interact and see all the different transactions that took place on the blockchain as well. Yeah, quickly about the marketplace. So we talked about the audit process and the blockchain auditing of different interactions related to data collection services. So now we talk about the marketplace. So one of the unique things about the marketplace is that, and the way we thought it would be good is that, so whenever you want to exchange data between different parties, like two parties, so between enterprise A and enterprise B, so one has the data set and other needs to use this data set to train an AI model. So today these interactions are not possible because of privacy concerns or regulatory concerns and compliance reasons and a lot of other complicated issues. And this kind of limits the innovation in the AI and the machine learning space, and it only allows the few big corporations to take advantage of the situation because they already have lots and lots of data, so they don't need to rely upon any other organization for the data. So this limits the innovation in the space and limits the growth of new companies as well, because they don't have access to the data. In order to get access to the data, it's too expensive, and also they have to go through a lot of processes, and it takes a lot of time as well. So what we created as a marketplace is that we used an open source technology called OpenMind. If ever you can search in Google like OpenMind, openmind.org. So we use the technology. We use the remote execution technology to facilitate this process. So how does it work? So as you see on the screen, so you as a data scientist come to the network and you identify a potential data set that suits your requirements. And then you send in the request to the network saying, okay, I want to train my model using these parameters. And this is the data set I want to use by this provider. So in this setup, what happens is that once the request comes to the network identifies the appropriate node of the organization, and it transfers the request to them. So then the request is taken upon by that organization, and if they approve it, it goes to the next step where the data is accessed locally in a secure environment within that organization, and then gets trained locally as well. And then the trained model is sent back to the data scientist after the approval of the organization, because there could be instances where there are possibilities of data leaks as well. So the organization who owns the data, they can ensure that there aren't any data leaks, and the data scientist has followed all the practices he had to ensure that security. And also in each and every interaction in this whole 8-step process is also documented on blockchain, so that if a government agency or a regulatory agency comes and tells, okay, how did you exchange the data, or how did you share the data with other organizations, you can simply show the audit history of what happened. And also in this way, now the companies can start generating new revenue sources, because instead of the data sitting in their cloud, now they can actually generate revenue from those data sets itself without actually giving away the data. So this kind of opens up possibilities of new innovation, because most of the data sets that are closed today and can become open for new algorithms and new applications. So finally, like the whole idea of transparency and trust in AI, I think it comes from the fundamental issue. Like, whenever we want to build trust in AI, I mean, we can have regulations and everything, but at the end of the day, it's all about creating awareness among all the parties involved in whether the developers who are training the AI algorithm, whether the people who are going to use these applications, and also the regulatory bodies who are going to regulate these spaces. So it's all about creating the awareness and having that mindset starting from the first line of code to ensure that these algorithms that you are building are fair and responsible and also are trustworthy to different users and use cases. That's it. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present what we do, and I would be glad to take any further questions.
This is awesome. Wow, thank you. As usual, our community is a little shy. If anyone did want to slip in a question, you can do that now in webinars. Otherwise, my main takeaway is I need to watch Coded Bias. I wasn't aware of that, among others. I mean, I have many takeaways. Wow, this is fascinating. Would you mind going back to your slide where you talk about I guess it's the audit matrix, where you were showing, yeah, exactly. Okay, so it looks like you can get geographic distribution, age. Can you get any other info, like how granular can this get about the person training the data?
This wouldn't actually disclose the personal details of the user who's training the data, but it just gives like, it is customizable. So this certificate is just an example of one scenario. But there could be different attributes or metadata related to a specific category, or domain. So, like
ethnicity, religious preference, other things like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, so this certificate will be customizable to those categories and attributes as well. So, yeah, it kind of depends on the user.
And then for the user, like let's say that it's important to be able to source religious preference, for example. Does that mean that at the point at which the data is trained, the user has to volunteer that information? I mean, I'm assuming. And then how does that happen? Or how does that conversation take place?
Yes, so the data collection process that we have today, so it's up to the end users to participate in a specific project or not. So they can decide. So of course, we have an incentive mechanism today. And also we have very strict practices to avoid the spamming and all the fake data that you can probably expect when there is an incentive. And also there is a point-based system as well. So if you are identified as, if your account is identified as someone trying to spam the network or the community, then your points will go down as well.
So if I'm an annotator as a part of an on-demand annotation workforce, I can kind of look through a list of projects and see what personal information I'm required to volunteer in order to work on that project, basically?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's the only question I had. This has been really interesting, as I thought it would be. I guess you know, one other sort of like existential question that I have is what happens when an ethically sourced data set that can be like verifiably better biased. I guess you can't say unbiased, although that's the name of your company, but better biased runs up against an authority, whether that's a government or a corporation or whatever else, that doesn't like those conclusions. I would imagine that you know, that's transparency is great unless it doesn't serve those in power locally, right? So how do you deal with that sort of tension? Or think about that maybe.
I think that's a really good question. So our idea was
hard one. Sorry.
Yeah, I think our idea was more about keeping the approach ground up. You know, like so instead of having a regulation and everyone has to follow it in a specific way. I think if we start educating the developers and creating that awareness and changing that mindset of thinking, I think that will have a huge impact. I mean, at the end of the day, you can have a certificate, you don't have a certificate. I guess most of the, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the change in behavior and the thinking of the developers who are building these applications I think that matters much more than
that's a great answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Did you want to throw your final slide up one more time and we can kind of say goodbye to everyone? So they have the QR code at the ready. Awesome. Hilarious quote. Love it. Thanks again, Sukesh. Really appreciate your time and the really interesting presentation. Thanks everyone who joined us as well, and talk to you soon.